Hospitality is a warm virtue. It teaches us how to welcome other people and also tells us what it is to be welcomed by others. And there are lots of rules and thoughts about hospitality. There are two rules for guests that I learned a long time ago. That to be a good guest, number one, show up on time. Don't come too early, don't be late, but show up on time. And the second rule is, have the good sense to know when to go home. Those rules help us to be good guests. Now there's some other rules that sometimes sound a bit harsher, but they drive home a point. This one is again about being a guest. And it says, on the first day, you're a guest. On the second day, you're a burden. On the third day, you're a pest. Well, I suppose it's a way of saying, don't overstay your welcome. The Irish have a set of verses that, well, maybe they're a bit exaggerated, maybe a bit over the top, but they still drive home a good message. It says, come in the evening, come in the morning, come when expected, come without warning. Thousands of welcomes you'll find before you, and the oftener you come, the more will adore you. Well, I do think that's a bit exaggerated, but it tells us about hospitality, being a good host or hostess, being a good guest. And we find hospitality as the theme in all of the three scripture passages today. First reading from the book of Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, Father Abraham and his wife Sarah are paid a visit by three messengers from God. And what do Abraham and Sarah do? They make them welcome. Sarah bakes her famous rolls. Abraham goes out and has a calf slaughtered. They prepare a wonderful dinner. They wash their guests' feet. And after the dinner, after that great warm welcome, one of the guests says to Abraham, thank you, and I'm going to come back about this time next year, and Sarah is going to be the mother of a baby boy whose name was Isaac. What great hospitality and welcome. And we see host and hostess, we see guests. In the second reading today from Paul's letter to the Colossians, he teaches us why we need to be people that are hospitable. And the simple reason is Christ is in you. That's why. Christ lives in you and in your neighbor. And when you show hospitality to your neighbor, you are showing hospitality to Christ. And in the gospel, we see that lived out. Jesus visits the home of his friends. Martha welcomes him at the door. Mary is seated at his feet, listening to every word. And Martha gets upset. She was getting ready for this visit. She'd cleaned the house, she'd set the table, she cut the flowers for the centerpiece, and she's been putting together one of her best meals. And she walks in the living room and sees her sister Mary seated at the feet of Jesus. And you can picture Martha doing this, hands on her hip. Lord, is it no concern of yours that that sister of mine looking down her nose. That sister of mine has left me to do all the work. Tell her to help me. And then Jesus, Martha, Martha, calm down. There's only one important thing right now. And Mary has chosen the better part. You're worried, upset about so many needless things, Martha. Mary has chosen the better part, and it won't be taken away from her. Now, what's this all about? What is Jesus teaching us about hospitality? Well, Martha represents the hospitality of service. Mary is representing the hospitality of listening. And both are important. The truth of the matter is, probably you and I are better at the Martha part than we are the Mary. Our lists of things that need to be done in order to welcome the guests. We do this and this and this and this, and we're ready and we're going to. But when the guests arrive, putting other things aside, even the things that are not going to get done, letting them go, and being with our guest. We're often better at Martha's service than we are Mary's listening. Both are important. And while we strive to grow in our hospitality, very often it's the listening part that needs more attention. That's true in my life, and it may be true in yours. May I offer you 3 little ideas for being a better listener? First rule is be attentive to the person who's talking with you. There was a public figure, not here in Avon Lake, that I knew. And oftentimes when there was a line of people to talk with him, as he shook hands with the person in front of him, he'd be looking over that person's shoulder to see who was next in line. Now, how would you feel? But perhaps we even do that and don't even know we do that. Rather than giving our undivided attention to the person in front of us, oftentimes we're mentally someplace else. Sometimes I get interrupted here at the parish. I'm on my way to do something, and lo and behold, here's someone in front of me. To give that person undivided attention is sometimes difficult when I'm thinking, I need to be over here. I've got to get this done. Look what time it is. The challenge is to take a few moments to be with that person with my full attention. The second idea is to show some body language that we're paying attention. To make it evident, not necessarily with words, maybe with a smile, maybe with a nod, yes, I'm following you, locking eyes. A lot of people find that hard to do. To look somebody in the eye when they're talking to you, to connect, because it says to them, yes, you're listening, you're with me, rather than trying to figure out what I'm going to come back with. Just to be. To let that person know by our body language that you're the person I've been waiting to talk with all day long. And what you have to say to me right now, I'm glad you're here. To give the person our full attention, to show it with our body language, that we're connecting. And the third one is to know the difference between